Today we are talking about the hidden beings that are more powerful than angels, known as Aeons. We're discovering this as we continue to explore the Tripartite Tractate, a banned Gnostic text that describes a secret God, the true God, the one God that is at the root of all reality and all creation. And as we have discovered through reading this, we have discovered that we are actually part of that, an eternal critical aspect of that one true God. So essentially, we are the one true God. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But what we're looking at today is how this being is structuring itself and ordering itself and begins to emanate these beings, very powerful beings, very important beings, infinitely higher than the angels that we hear about in the Bible that are related to the Creator God, but rather eons of light, beings of light called eons. So we're looking at the Tripartite Tractate. We're also looking at the secret book of John as well as we explore this fascinating concept and see what they are, what their purpose is, and how they relate to existence. Now, we're going to begin, but please, hey, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And also, if you enjoy my content and want to see my channel grow, please support over on Patreon. It helps out a lot. Just go to patreon.com/MorgueOfficial and you'll get access to all of our members only videos. We've got a lot of them, and you get a new members only video every single week. And you can also support and get access to those members only videos by supporting at tier 2 or higher on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. Also, beware. There are scammers in the comments, and I see more of them all over on Instagram and on YouTube. There are people pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. I don't even know what exactly they're trying to do, but they're scamming people. So just be aware. That's not me. That's a scam. Stay away from that. Also, be aware that there are people out there and groups that don't like what I'm doing and don't like what we're doing in general and are spreading a lot of misinformation and disinformation about me and what we do. So just keep your wits about you, use logic and reason, and don't fall for the BS. All right, here we go, my friends. The beings that are higher than angels. We're taking a look at the Gnostic concept of the Eons. Now, like I said, we're looking at the Tripartite Tractate and the Secret Book of John. These were books that are both considered Gnostic texts that were banned by the church as heresies. Now, the reason why we're going to take a look at these two is because these two books both talk about eons, but they're in different traditions of Gnosticism. So the Tripartite Tractate is Valentinian Gnosticism, and the Secret Book of John is Sethian Gnosticism. And there are differences and commonalities, but one of the big differences is that Valentinian Gnosticism seems to put things in terms that is more acceptable to Orthodox Christianity, whereas Sethian Gnosticism is a little more rebellious, you might say, or subversive. So we're going to be taking a look at both and comparing them and contrasting them in terms of eons. And if that doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all going to make sense in a minute. And if you haven't seen my other videos on this topic, go check them out. There's a whole playlist on the Tripartite Tractate. You will like it. You will enjoy it. It's really good. So let's bring this up on screen here. Now, this is called Aeonic Life. Aeonic Life, the life of the eons. Now, once again, you can read all of these for free on gnosis.org. People are like, where can you read these books? They're for free on gnosis.org. It's a great website. I love the website. Check them out, go take a look, and that's where you can read all this stuff for yourself. So, Aeonic Life. Now, previously, just sort of a recap on where we left off last time as we read the Tripartite Tractate, is that it describes reality in terms of this divine mind that in the Tripartite Tractate they call the Father. And the Father sort of emanates different perspectives of itself. And essentially, in the beginning, you have this, well, not really the beginning because it's eternal, but you have the eternal Father, Son, and the Church. And so there's the Father, the Son, and the Church. And what do you mean by the Church? Like buildings? No, of course not. The Church just means like the collection of all imperishable souls. So essentially us. So it's this really cool idea that the eternal God, this secret God, is this triple concept of the Father, the Son, and the souls of the church, or we all are in terms of Valentinian Gnosticism. So essentially, we are all God. God, the Son, and the Church all are interpenetrating and rely on each other and are part of this interconnected system. So we are essentially aspects of God. We are God as expressed in a multitude of souls. So now coming from this is the Aeons. Okay? So coming from this is the Aeons. Now, let's read a little bit about what it says here, and I'll explain it, and then we're going to take a look at the secret book of John. It's very interesting. So, Aeonic life. All those who came forth from him, who are the eons of the eons, being emanations and offspring of his procreative nature, they too in their procreative nature have given glory to the Father, as he was the cause of their establishment. So essentially they're talking about the creative force of this secret God, the creative force of the Father, the creative force as the Aeon of Aeons. And so the Aeons are the emanations or the offspring of this force, and they also have a procreative nature. And it says, have and glory the Father as he was the one of their establishment. So they have procreative power as well. So essentially it's saying that just like, the power of the Father is emanating and creating, they too have the power to create. And, already we can see that this is different than how one would conceptualize like angels in terms of the Bible and the God of the Bible. Anyway, this is what we said previously, namely that he creates the eons as roots and springs and fathers, and he is the one to whom they give glory. Now, so this is very, very cool. So what's being said here, what we have said previously, namely that he creates the eons as roots and springs and fathers. So God, this secret God has been described itself as a spring and a root and, of course, the Father. So you can sort of see that these are like reflections of the Father. These are reflections of God. These are the emanations of God. And just like God, they are also roots, springs, and fathers. And roots, springs, and fathers, what does that mean? Well, of course, this all has to do with a creative process. Roots are the beginning of a plant, of a tree, of something creative, of something that will become. A spring is something that is endless, right? It's constantly flowing, and that's associated with this endlessness. So you have roots, which are like beginnings. You have springs, which is this endless power. And then you have fathers, meaning the creative force or the creative aspect. So you have essentially what's being said here is that these eons themselves are creative beings. They are like gods themselves. They are like gods themselves in that they are beginnings of, they can create, begin things. They are the roots of things and have this eternal, everlasting power through a spring, and they themselves are fathers. But we're going to take a look and see that. Anyway, let me just read, and you'll see what I mean. I get ahead of myself because there's a lot of really interesting things to unpack here. So, they have begotten, for he has knowledge and wisdom, and the totalities knew that it is from knowledge and wisdom that they have come forth. They would have brought forth a seeming honor. The Father is the one who is the totalities. If the eons had risen up to give their honor individually. Therefore, in the song of glorification and in the power of the unity of him from whom they have come, they were drawn into a mingling and a combination and a unity with one another. They offered glory worthy of the Father from the pleromatic congregations, which is a single representation, although many, because it was brought forth as a glory for the single one, and because they come forth toward the one who is himself the totalities. All right, let me pause there. It keeps going, but I want to break this up a little bit and explain to you what's going on. Essentially, what's being said here is that you have these eons, and these eons came from a power that is a unity, and they themselves, because they come from a power of a unity, are going to form a unity themselves. They're individual eons, but they come into combinations and form a unity with one another. They're basically like structuring themselves. It's like if you're going to form a system of government or something like that. They're structuring themselves as operating within a unity. This is why it says they were drawn together into a mingling and a combination and a unity with one another. And why is this important? Well, because these are all creative forces. And these creative forces are going to be working together and in harmony. There'd be a problem if these creative forces weren't working in harmony and in order. There would be chaos and destruction. And that happens in some versions of Gnosticism, which we'll get to in a moment. But you have these beings of eons that come from a unity, and they themselves form a unity with each other by having a sort of structure or combination. Now, this was a praise, the one who brought forth the totalities, being a first fruit of the immortals and an eternal one, because having come forth from the living eons, being perfect and full because of the one who is perfect and full, it left full and perfect those who have given glory in a perfect way of the fellowship. For like the faultless Father, when he is glorified, he also hears the glory which glorifies him, so as to make them manifest as that which he is. Now, this is interesting idea about, like glorification. And we're going to talk a little bit about how, Valentinian Gnosticism, which is what the Tripartite Tractate represents, that particular tradition of Gnosticism, puts things in terms that's a lot more similar to what would be familiar in Orthodox Christianity, such as like praising the Father, etc. What we're going to see in we're going to take a little bit about the Secret Book of John, where the Secret Book of John is a little more exposed. It's not so hidden in this Christian language and this Christian lingo, where what it's really about is about a structuring of the mind and a structuring of the powers. The cause of the second honor which accrued to them is that which was returned to them from the Father, when they had known the grace by which they bore fruit with one another because of the Father. As a result, just as they were brought forth in the glory for the Father, so too, in order to appear perfect, they appeared acting by giving glory. They were fathers of the third glory, according to the independence and power which was begotten with them, since each one of them individually does not exist so as to give glory in a unitary way to him who he loves. So what we're going to be taking a look at here, again, like I said, you hear this is a lot of more traditional Christian lingo of glorifying and praising, etc. And that's why I tend to like Valentinian Gnosticism a little less, is because it puts things more in terms of those kinds of terms. It talks about the Father, the Father, the Father, the Father. It really starts to de-emphasize the role of women. But this is, in my opinion, was probably done to try and make it more palatable to what would become mainstream Christianity, to try and get more people on board. But let's take a minute here to take a look at the Secret Book of John to understand the eons even better. Because when we take a look at the Secret Book of John, which is a book of Sethian Gnosticism, which is very, very similar, but a little different. So instead of having the Father, the Son, and the Church, you have the Father, the Mother, and the Son. And so you have that nice recognition of the feminine element there with the Father, the Mother, and the Son. However, it's important to note that, it's actually in Sethian Gnosticism, yes, it is called the Father, but it's more often called the Great Invisible Spirit, or the Holy Invisible Spirit, or the One. And these beings, and even the eons themselves, whether it's the Father or the Mother or the individual eons, they're described as being androgynous. So it's very, very interesting that these beings are, they're not male or female, they are androgynous beings, but sometimes their creative forces are put in terms of mother or father or he or she to represent certain aspects of energy, certain aspects of creation, certain types of creative forces, but ultimately they are all androgynous. Now, here's what's very, very, so let's take a look about Sethian Gnosticism when we're talking about eons. So in Sethian Gnosticism, these are eons. They're sometimes referred to as angels, but we have to remember that these are beings that are much higher than what would be considered angels in like Christianity. In Christianity, angels are related to the Creator God and his messengers. Angels are essentially the messengers of the Creator God. Those beings don't come in for a long time. Those beings actually come from one of the eons. One of the eons actually, according to Sethian Gnosticism, Valentinian Gnosticism is a little different, and it even depends what books. It changes a little bit in different books in Valentinian Gnosticism. But in Sethian Gnosticism, the Creator God of the Bible was actually created by one of the eons on accident. And I'll explain more about that in a minute, because it's very, very interesting. If you haven't heard it before, I'll explain that to you briefly. But first, I want to talk a little bit here about how the eons are described in the Secret Book of John, because in the Secret Book of John, we get a glimpse into this creation and the structure of reality in a more in-depth way. So in the Tripartite Tractate, you have the Father, the Son, and the Church, and the emanating eons. Now, of course, this is all a divine mind, where this divine mind is structuring itself and ordering itself. That's what it's doing. That's by having all these different aspects of itself, all these different emanations, all these different creative forces. But it's hidden in a lot of Christian mythos about giving glory to the Father and things like this. In the Secret Book of John, it's a lot more explicit and really highlights what's happening here, and is very interesting. So let me read this to you and explain it. So the four lights arising from the divine autogenes stood before him. Okay, so these are the four lights, and these are eonic beings. The four fundamental powers are understanding, grace, perception, and consideration. Grace exists within the realm of light called Harmozel, the first angel. Along with Harmozel are grace, truth, and form. See, this is so these lights are actually powers of the eons, okay? And they refer to them as angels, but I'm saying eon here because they're referred to as eons in Gnosticism, and it clearly demarcates that these are different beings and associated with the Bible and the Creator God. But you can see here, we have the first eon, which is Harmazel. And with Harmazel are the powers of grace, truth, and form. Now, the second light is called Oriel, and it stands over the second realm. With Oriel are conceptualization, perception, and memory. You see what's happening here? These eons are actually structures of the mind. This divine mind is ordering itself, and are coming, and different concepts are being structured in terms of these eons. So grace, truth, form, conceptualization, perception, memory. This is for the time this was written in, and for the audience it was written for, etc. This is some very deep, intriguing valuable information. And this is why this was considered like secret knowledge and secret truth, and that only the few could understand it. Because here we're talking about the divine mind of God, the divine mind of the great invisible spirit, the divine mind of all reality, structuring and ordering itself at the very fundamental level, just with things like concepts, perception, memory. The third light is called Devethai, and it stands over the third realm. With Devethai are understanding, love, and idea. The fourth light is called Alalith, and it stands over the fourth realm. With Alalith are perfection, peace, and wisdom. So this is, and what's fascinating about this is describing the structuring of the divine mind, but it's also describing the structures of our minds as well. And when you see later on, when dark beings are created called archons, which are rulers, which you could sort of think of as the adversaries of eons, but eons are way more powerful than archons. Eons are extremely more powerful than archons are like shadows of eon. They're the shadows of eons, essentially. So when you get to the archons, now the archons are what's associated with the creator God of the Bible. But when you look at the archons, they also represent certain structures of the mind, like wrath, ignorance, envy. I can't remember all of them right now, but just like you would see that these represent positive structures of the mind, conceptualization, perception, memory, understanding, love, idea, perfection, peace, and wisdom, you have things like ignorance and wrath and hatred and etc., which are the archons. So the whole point of what Gnosticism is to be able to achieve gnosis through an understanding of what one is, and thus being able to defeat the archons. Now, see, to the average person, you're going to have this story of like eons and archons, and oh man, there's like this war where they're battling, like a comic book, a Marvel movie sort of thing. But really, these are all structures in our mind, and when we are overcoming archons, these are like overcoming the aspects in our mind that are holding us back from realizing our divine nature. Things like ignorance, hatred, envy. Some people, in the Jungian perspective, some people equate the archon of archons, Yaldabaoth, who is the creator God of the Bible. Some people associate him with the ego. And so you can see the idea of defeating the archons and coming to knowledge of what one is about defeating the aspects of oneself, one's own inner demons, so to speak, or inner archons, those that are ruling you. And this is in Jungian psychology all day long. Jung always talks about how if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life. Ruler, archons, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. And fate is actually, according to Gnosticism, Sethian Gnosticism, one of the evil traps the head archon Yaldabaoth creates. And fate in those terms is getting trapped in a sleepwalking cycle in life. This would be, fate as the trap of Yaldabaoth would be like someone who never thinks and never questions and just follows in that pattern. Their fate is set for them. They're going to be born and get a dead-end job and, work a 9 to 5, go to church, get married, get a place to live, have kids, and die. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting married and having kids and having a house. That's great, good. But if you just get trapped in that narrative and never question yourself for what reality is or what existence is, that's just what I'm talking about here. Nothing wrong with those things at all. Those can all be very satisfying things if one wants to pursue those things. But if one gets trapped in the story of existence without ever realizing what one is, this is how one falls into a fated trap, according to Gnosticism. So in Sethian Gnosticism, we talk about the different lights, right? The different lights, the different eons. And we see the fourth light is called a Lalith, and it stands over the fourth realm. With a Lalith are perfection, peace, and wisdom, or Sophia. Sophia means wisdom. Now, Sophia is a archon. Not an archon, an eon. Sophia is an eon. Now, the thing is with these eons, all of these eons have, remember how in the Valentinian Tripartite Tractate, it was saying they operated as like a structure, a unitary structure? Well, in Sethian Gnosticism, it gets into a little more detail on how they're structured. They all operate in pairs. So they all have a partner. And we can understand this as symmetry, as cooperation, as unity, as harmony. So you have cooperation, unity, and harmony as symbolized by having partners that one is working with. And you can understand this as having like a harmonized mind, a structured mind, etc. Well, the problem is that Sophia, or wisdom, desires to create on her own. She wants to have her own creation. And so she creates without her partner. And when she creates without her partner, this is what gives birth to the dark realm of chaos and the evil god, the archon Yaldabaoth, which is the creator god of the Bible, who then begins to, from his darkness, or he's called the dim ruler because he has a bit of the light from his mother Sophia, but he himself is a being of darkness, so he's like a shadow, the dim ruler. And Yaldabaoth has many names: Samael, the blind god, Nebro, the rebel, and this being creates archons and a world of darkness and begins to trap souls from the realm of divine light into material bodies. Now, it's very interesting when we understand this, though. We see that when Sophia breaks harmony with the divine mind, this gives rise to the material world. Now, if we want to, there's just something really cool I want to talk about for a second. If we talk about this in terms of the Neogenian system, and specifically meta-rationalism, which means that we can understand metaphysics rationally, it's very, very cool that this is extremely similar to understanding reality being generated in terms of frequency patterns. Because in terms of frequency patterns, if all of the, and I'm going to put it in simplistic terms here so I don't get into, heavy math, but in terms mathematically, if you have a set of sinusoidal waves and they are all in phase and they are all at equal amplitude, then essentially what happens is they express a singularity. Now, what that means is that when this symmetry is broken by having a variance in amplitude and introducing phases that are no longer orthogonal, this symmetry and unity breaks, which means it no longer results in a singularity, but begins to result in like four structures of some kind. So essentially what this means is, even like mathematically speaking, if we're talking in terms of frequency, when symmetry breaks, this is what gives rise to the domain of space and time, what we call the holos. So, and we can even understand this in terms of like mathematics, or not mathematics, of course, mathematics, but in terms of holography or holograms. When you have an interference pattern, when you have waves that interfere with each other, that is exactly what gives rise to a 3D holographic image, or a world. And so it's very, very cool to see, even in these ancient Gnostic texts, them hitting on the idea of that when symmetry is broken, a world arises. Because now you're entering the realm of difference. And that this is why a world arises, because when everything is totally perfect, Now, not in terms of Gnosticism, but in terms of existence, just how existence is. When everything is completely perfect, well, there is no world of matter. Because when there's total perfection, there's no difference. Difference is what gives rise to this, quote unquote, imperfect world of matter. Because now there's difference. This is predicated on distance. This world is, I am here and not over there. That's a difference. I am tall. That person is short or taller than me. I have blonde hair. That person has red hair. Or, I think of all the infinity of differences all around you. Things only have definitions because of difference or imperfection. When everything is perfect and all differences are completely melted away, there is no world of matter anymore, because there isn't even a here versus there, in terms of physical distance, at least. So difference or imperfection is what gives rise to the world of matter. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is that this is one of the areas that I disagree with in Sethian Gnosticism, because Sethian Gnosticism looks at the material world as being evil and condemns Sophia for being one who, doesn't really condemn her. They never say anything bad about Sophia, but Sophia is the one who, I just want to make that clear. They don't say anything negative about Sophia. Sophia is a very important figure in Gnosticism. Sophia, even Christ is sometimes looked as an avatar of Sophia. So Sophia is a very positive character in Gnosticism. But what I mean is that it's Sophia's desire to create on her own that gives birth to the evil god and the evil world of darkness. And first of all, there's nothing inherently wrong. I don't think it should be looked at as a negative thing to want to create. And also, I disagree with looking at the material world as something inherently negative and evil. So the material world and the imperfection of the material world isn't necessarily negative and evil. In Sethian Gnosticism, it's considered hell, the epitome of darkness and evil. But what the material world allows us to do is it gives us a playing field for us to be able to experience together. That's what this place allows us to do. This place allows us to be able to have an interaction together, to have experiences together. So this realm, now it's in a very sad state right now, and this is exactly what we're trying to do and get ahead of by raising humanity's consciousness so that we can build a better world. That's exactly what we want to do in the Neogenian system, create a new beginning, a new humanity, a new earth through a new consciousness. But we have to understand that the material world isn't evil inherently. And it's important to understand that, because if we go around believing that the material world is inherently evil, then we're not going to do much to try and change it. Psychologically speaking, it doesn't follow that we should make the world a better place if it is hell. Well, if it's hell, then we should concentrate on escaping it or something like that. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to transform ourselves and transform the world. And we need to get away from this idea that the material world is evil. We need to look at it as simply a canvas, and we can create anything on it. And unfortunately, what has been created is a picture of terror and destruction and chaos and violence and murder and hatred. But we can totally change that by coming together with our creative forces and changing and transforming that into something beautiful. A canvas that is no longer a picture of darkness, but a beautiful picture of beauty and unity and love and reason and wisdom. And we can do that. We have the power to do that. And this is where I agree much more with the type of Gnosticism that is presented in the Gospel of Thomas. The Gospel of Thomas is another Gnostic text, but it comes at things from another perspective, where Jesus Christ is also saying, you are sons of the living Father, you come from the realm of light. but the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. And in that banned gospel, where Jesus is saying that we're all divine, essentially, Jesus is constantly saying, you have to recognize what's right in front of you. The kingdom of God isn't in the sky. It's not in the sea. It's not somewhere you go to when you die. It's right here and right now within you and all around you. And as long as we keep trying to look for heaven in an afterlife, or nirvana, or ascendance to the fifth dimension, or whatever, as long as we are looking for something other than what is right here and now, we're never going to create a better world. It's not about breaking the cycle of incarnation. It's about creating a world that allows us to evolve to eventually reach a point where we have come together in unity and consciousness to where we don't require to incarnate anymore. Breaking the cycle of incarnation isn't like, detaching, or pleasing God, or finding out some secret. Knowledge helps, but it's because when you know what reality is, then you know what to do. So reality, it's not about reaching a heaven in the sky or nirvana or any of that. It's about transforming the world right here and now, because we are specifically localizing or incarnating on Earth to learn and grow. And we need to create a world that allows us to do that together as a unity. And then existence on Earth will be wonderful. It'll be a fantastic experience. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out real quick, where you're seeing a lot of differences in Gnosticism, right? You're seeing Valentinian Gnosticism, you're seeing Sethian Gnosticism. We talked a little bit about the Gnosticism associated with the Gospel of Thomas, and you see that they're all a little different, but they all have the same overarching theme. We are beings of light, we are divine, and we have the power to create and transform, and it's through knowledge and understanding that we come to gnosis, not through faith or good works or worshiping God or any of those things. So while a lot of the details are different, the overarching theme is largely the same. We are eternal, we are divine, we are beings of light, we have the power to transform the world, and we need to come to knowledge of this, understanding of this. So in Valentinian Gnosticism, the creator God isn't looked at as this evil being, but rather as a lesser God, kind of an ignorant God, an ignorant, lesser God, not necessarily. So again, it's more palatable to mainstream Christianity. So it says, now going back to the Tripartite Tractate, it says they are the first and the second, and thus both of them are perfect and full, for they are manifestations of the Father who is perfect and full, as well as those who come forth who are perfect by the fact that they glorify the perfect one. The fruit of the third, however, consists of honors of the will of each one of the eons and each one of the properties. The Father has power. It exists fully, perfect in the thought, which is a product of agreement. Since it is a product of the individuality of the eons, it is this which he loves and over which he has power, as it gives glory to the Father by means of it. So again, it's just talking about the structures of the eons, and that each one of the eons has particular properties. And you can see that it's like the Secret Book of John, where there is an order and structuring happening. It's just putting it in a lot more terms of things like glorifying, giving glory to the Father. It says, for this reason, they are minds of minds, which are found to be words of words, elders of elders, degrees of degrees, which are exalted above one another, each one of those who give glory and has place, and his exaltation, and his dwelling, and his rests, which consist of the glory which he brings forth. So what this is essentially talking about is that these eons are creative forces, and they are creating and forming a hierarchy. They are minds of minds, which are words of words, elders of elders, degrees of degrees, which are exalted above one another. We have a hierarchy happening here. We have eons creating within this hierarchical structure. All those who glorify the Father have their begetting eternally. They beget in the act of assisting one another, since the emanations are limitless and immeasurable, and since there is no envy on the part of the Father towards those who come forth in regard to their begetting, something equal or similar to him, since he is the one who exists in the totalities, begetting and revealing himself. So essentially, they're talking about how the eons are assisting one another and creating and emanating, etc. And the Father isn't envious of any of their creations because he is the totality. It's essentially saying that the Father isn't jealous of any of these emanations that they are creating, even if it's something equal or similar that he would create, or to him, or whatever, equal or similar to what he would create, because he is everything. The Father is all reality, the totalities. And so there's no envy here. And see, this is just a stark contrast. This is very different from what normally you would hear in Christianity, from the jealous, envious God of the Bible, who is, I am the only God, there is no God before me, thou shalt not worship any God other than me. So you could definitely bet that the creator God of the Bible would be very jealous and envious if there were other beings creating things equal to things that he could create. So this is, again, emphasizing the stark difference between the one secret God, which is the totality of all things, forming these emanations, and the creator God of the Bible, which the Tripartite Tractate will get to at some point. But it's a much lesser, much lower being. So we are infinitely more powerful than the creator God of the Bible. And in a lot of Sethian Gnostic texts, the creator God of the Bible is actually afraid of us. That's why he keeps trying to trap us in so many different ways, through bodies and splitting us apart and causing a flood and all these different things, because he's afraid of us. He doesn't want us to remember what we are and regain our powers, and then he will be, destroyed. However, in Valentinian Gnosticism, the being isn't destroyed, but actually redeemed. And this is one part that I like about Valentinian Gnosticism. And again, it depends which version you're looking at. But overall here, overarching themes, the creator God isn't necessarily evil so much. He's more ignorant. He doesn't really know what he's doing, and that what he's doing is not good. But he can be redeemed and actually be used as a servant of the light. And I think that that's really cool, because that's really what it's about. The demiurge, the creator God is also known as the demiurge, or demiurgos, which means creator. And the idea of a creative being that can create material worlds isn't necessarily bad. If you create bad worlds, then it's negative. But I like the idea of that being able to be redeemed and becoming a servant of the light, thus having the ability to create, theoretically speaking, create positive worlds. In terms of our system, the Neogenian system, I like that idea, because we are creators. And that's, again, the difference here is that we are beings of divine light. This is our creation. We have simply forgotten that it's creation, that it's our creation, and let it fall into the hands of those who are willing it into a slave-like system and a slave-like society. So we just need to raise our consciousness and raise the consciousness of the world so that we can reclaim the world and build a brilliant future right here and now. And so we can use that creative force and that creative power as divine beings of light, stepping into our creative power. Let's see. We said that they were right. So God is not envious. The Father is not envious because he is the totality. Whomever he wishes, he makes into a father, of whom he, in fact, is father, and of God, of whom he in fact is God, and he makes them the totalities whose entirety he has. It's essentially just talking about, again, this is the structuring, and everything's an emanation. So there's you have fathers of fathers, and begettings of begettings. These are just talking about emanations. It's kind of like cause and effect in a certain way. Not exactly, but it's along those lines. In the proper sense, all the names which are great are kept there. These names which angels share, who have come into being in the cosmos, along with the archons, although they do not have any resemblance to the eternal beings. So now we're getting into the idea of the archons, and it's a bit different than in the Sethian Gnosticism, but here we have, in the proper sense, all the names which are great are kept there. They're names which the angels share, who have come into being in the cosmos, along with the archons, although they do not have any resemblance to the eternal being. So the archons have no resemblance to the eternal beings, but you have the different names of the different angels, in which these are different properties. We saw that a bit in the secret book of John, the different properties, by giving them different names. Now, one thing I want to know is that, like in the secret book of John, sometimes the word angel is used, but I just want to make it clear, right? You have eon. So in Gnosticism, they'll talk about eons and they'll talk about angels, but I just want to be, when I say that these beings are higher than the angels, what I'm talking about is the angels as depicted in Orthodox Christianity, as servants of the Creator God, which would be archons in this version. Okay, so these beings, eons, their emanations, the angels that come forth from those eons, those are all higher than the Creator God and the archons. These are beings of light. They are beings of darkness and shadow. Again, it's hard. There's many different versions of Gnosticism, so always keep that in mind, depending on which lens of Gnosticism you are looking through. Oh my, let's see here. Okay, so the entire system of eons has a love and a longing for the perfect, complete discovery of the Father, and this is their unimpeded agreement. Though the Father reveals himself eternally, he did not wish that they should know him, since he grants that he be conceived of in such a way as to be sought for, while keeping to himself his unsearchable primordial being. So the eons want to know and understand the Father, but the Father keeps himself from them because he wants to be sought. And this is a really interesting idea where essentially it's like you don't want to just come out right and tell it. It's like, oh, I want you to find out for yourself. So these eons are motivated to understand the Father, but the Father doesn't reveal himself right away. The Father wants to be sought after. And we can understand this from our perspective as being beings that need to realize that we are God. And we have to come to that realization ourselves. If I just go, hey, you're God, I mean, you're like, why should you believe me? If I just go, hey, yeah, you ultimately have to come to that realization yourself. It's like, I can't make you or anyone reach a new level of consciousness. It's not possible. So what my channel is about giving people information and tools to help them be able to reach that level themselves. That's ultimately what I want to do with my channel, and what my goal is here is to bring information and tools and knowledge so that people can come to these ideas for themselves, to learn how to think critically and rationally and realize what they are and what reality is, and thus enter into a new level of consciousness. So it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar in this idea of one needs to come to understand for themselves. It can't just be told. So it is he, the Father, who gave root impulses to the eons, since they are places on the path which leads towards him, as towards a school of behavior. He has extended to them faith in and prayer to him they do not see, and a firm hope in him, of whom they do not conceive, and a fruitful love, which looks towards that which it does not see, and an acceptable understanding of the eternal mind, and a blessing, which is riches and freedom, and a wisdom of the one who desires the glory of the Father for his thought. So essentially he extends to them the idea that, even though you can't see him, that it is there. And so they, even though they can't see it, they are trying to understand it and come to knowledge of it. It is by virtue of his will that the Father, the one who is exalted, is known, that is, by virtue of the Spirit which breathes in the totalities, and it gives them an idea of seeking after the unknown one, just as one is drawn by a pleasant aroma to search for the thing from which the aroma arises, since the aroma of the Father surpasses ordinary ones. So this is a really cool idea. This is about the sort of idea that the yearning to understand the Father, or the yearning to understand existence, like what existence is, what the totalities is, what is embedded in reality. So people are going to be naturally drawn to want to know what existence is, and they compare it to, if you smell, whoa, that smells good, you want to go find out, you're automatically like, oh, if you're hungry, like, oh, where's that coming from? What smells so good? I want to go towards that. So that's what they're using as an analogy here, is that embedded within the totalities, embedded within existence, is that yearning of knowledge of the Father, or what existence is. And of course, that's very much true. We can see this everywhere in, religion and science and philosophy, trying to understand God, or trying to have a relationship with God, or trying to understand existence, or trying to, understand different modes of reality, or deconstruct existence in terms of different modalities and ontologies and philosophy. So we can see this obviously throughout history. And in terms of our system, this is a desire ultimately to know ourselves, because we are God. And this is why, the Delphic aphorism, know thyself, or the longer version, which I prefer, is know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods, because you are the universe and the gods. So when you know yourself, you'll know the universe and the gods. And that's the problem, is that humanity has been looking everywhere except for at themselves. It's kind of like, you ever had, like, oh, where are my glasses? Can't find them anywhere. And they're on top of your head. Same thing with humanity trying to find God. Oh, where's God? I can't will, man. Look in the mirror. You are God. Your glasses are on your head. So this is the problem, is that humanity has been constantly told throughout history, know thyself, know thyself, know thyself, look within. The answers are within. It's not outside. It's not anywhere. Look within. And then humanity is just like, what? I can't find. Where, though? Where? I can't. The glasses are on your head. So we're talking still the analogy of a pleasing aroma, being like this desire to know. For his sweetness leaves the Aeons in ineffable pleasure, and it gives them their idea of mingling with him who wants them to know him in a united way, and to assist one another in the spirit which is sown within them. So we're talking now the idea of the Aeons, that the Aeons all want to know what God, this knowledge of the Father, and it drives them to create. Though existing under a great weight, they are renewed in an inexpressible way, since it is impossible for them to be separated from that in which they are set in an uncomprehending way, because they will not speak, being silent about the Father's glory, about the one who has the power to speak, and yet they will take form from him. Essentially, even though that they have like a lot of responsibility, that they are able to persist in this journey to wanting to understand and know. He revealed himself, though it is impossible to speak of him. They have him hidden in a thought, since from this one blank words are missing, which is kind of ironic, because that's kind of an important piece that's missing. They are silent. I like this. It says they have him hidden in a thought. I think that's great, because we all have the answers hidden in a thought within ourselves. Plato said that all learning is actually remembering. They are silent about the way the Father is in his form and his nature and his greatness, while the eons have become worthy of knowing through his Spirit that he is unnameable and incomprehensible. It is through his Spirit, which is the trace of the search for him, that he provides them the ability to conceive of him and to speak about him. Each one of the eons is a name, that is, each of the properties and powers of the Father, since he exists in many names which are intermingled and harmonious with one another. So each of the eons has a name, which is each is a property and power of the Father. And we saw this a little more explicitly in Sethian Gnosticism, where it's like, oh, this is Harmosiel, this is Elalith, and this represents peace and wisdom and understanding and conceptualization and idea. So we had a lot more about understanding names and powers and properties in Sethian Gnosticism. Here it's a little more vague. You can see it's a little more vague and a little more in terms of glory, more in terms of things that would be more typical to Christianity. Since he exists in many names, which are all intermingled and harmonious with one another. So it's this idea that really all these eons are expressions of the Father, and they all have their own names, and they're all the properties of the Father. So what's really kind of cool about this is that, if they want to know the Father, they need to know each other, because they're all different names and aspects and properties of the Father. So if they want to know the Father, they need to know each other. And this is also sort of similar to our story here on Earth in this great game of life, where, for fuck's sake, please, people, realize that it's a game so we can have a better game and stop killing each other. We'd like to play a nice game. This is not a good one, please. But in our story here, same sort of thing. We need to know ourselves, but then we also need to know each other, because we are all different aspects of reality. And this is where we want to be harmonious. It says, which are intermingled and harmonious with one another. Just like we want to be harmonious and intermingled with one another here. We don't want to hate each other because of our diversity. Oh, you're a different color than me. Or I don't understand, how you love people of the same gender. Or you have a different hat than me, or I don't know, whatever bullshit people come up with. We need to celebrate our diversity and learn from each other, because we're all different aspects of the universe. We're all different aspects of the universe, and we're coming to know each other. And this is part of what's supposed to be fun about existence, is understanding each other in our multiplicity and diversity, not being like, oh, well, I don't like you because you are a different color than me. Like, how petty can you get? I said this earlier in the chat. It's like planet Earth is cosmic kindergarten, where humanity just hasn't, they've been playing in the sandbox for thousands of years, and it's like, hey, you need to play nice with the other kids and share your toys and not fight with each other. Chill out. Learn how to play nice. And that's humanity just hasn't learned how to play nice for thousands of years. They're still in that kindergarten state of development. And, everyone goes through stages of development, but Earth is outgrowing its clothes here. Like, it's getting too old to be behaving this way. Humanity needs to reach the next level of consciousness. It's about time. It's ridiculous. Like, if you look at the things that are going on in the world right now, that people are treating each other in horrendous ways that you would think would only have happened thousands of years ago, but they're happening today, right now, in a supposedly modern era. This is the Dark Ages. This is ridiculous. This is, and for the most of it stems from religion. And so we need meaning. And what is religion but an idea? These are all just ridiculous ideas that people have created in their heads and are now torturing each other because of it. So it's time time's up. Come on. It's time to get going. It's time to build a new world. Let's do it. We need a new beginning. We need it now. So it is possible to speak of him because of the wealth of speech, just as the Father is a single name because he is the Father is a single name because he is a unity, yet is innumerable in his properties and names. One in the many. a many that has expressed itself as a multiplicity. We talk about this in the Neogenian system all the time. We are one mind expressing itself as particularized minds and a network mind. We are a network mind. We are one mind that is many minds, or as we call them, zetas, coming to understand each other through ourselves, through our interactions here, and organizing ourselves as a network. And you can see that that network aspect here is really reflected very well. And they're talking about the different eons intermingling with each other and connecting and forming, different structures. This is like how we are a network mind, and we need to reflect that by being and interacting in a more synchronistic and harmonious way. The emanations of the totalities, which exist from the one who exists, did not occur according to a separation from one another, as something cast off from the one who begets them. Rather, their begetting is like a process of extension, as the Father extends himself to those whom he loves, so that those who have come forth from him might become him as well. So again, really cool. It's saying that the begetting or the emanations of the totalities, there's no separation from one another, and begetting isn't like a breaking off. All right. So if you're thinking about things being created or emanated, there isn't a separation and there isn't like a breaking off. It's rather an extension. It's a process of extension. And so all the eons are extensions of the Father, and all the creations of the eons are extensions of the eons, and all of these things are extensions of each other. And it says, the Father extends himself to those whom he loves, so that those who have come forth from him might become him as well. There you have it. So those who have come forth from him might become him as well. Because when you realize that you are an extension, you are that thing. You are it. This is a lot like Advaita Vedanta, where Atman realizes that it is Brahman. And when Atman realizes it is Brahman, it becomes Brahman. So we are God. We need to realize, come to this realization, this gnosis, that we are God. There is no breaking apart. There is no separation. We are all extensions and emanations. Just as the present eon, though a unity, is divided by units of time, and units of time are divided into years, and years are divided into seasons, and seasons into months, and months into days, and days into hours, and hours into moments, so too the eon of the truth, since it is a unity and multiplicity, receives honor in the small and the great names according to the power of each to grasp it. By way of analogy, like a spring, which is what it is, yet flows into streams and lakes and canals and branches, or like a root spread out beneath trees and branches with its fruit, or like a human body which is partitioned in an indivisible way into members of members, primary members and secondary, great and small. Again, very, very cool. They're talking about how everything is an extension. They're talking particularly about the eon of truth itself, and they're comparing it kind of like the idea of time being divided into years, and years are divided into seasons, and seasons into months, and months into days, and days into hours, and hours into moments, etc. But it's all time. It's all time. It's all one thing. And according to Gnosticism, I'm not about to get into a conversation of what time actually is. But according to this understanding here, everything is ultimately a unity and a multiplicity, where you can understand like the concept of time, but then years and months and seasons and days and hours and minutes and seconds. And it says truth is a unity and multiplicity, receives honor in the small and the great names according to the power who each grasp it. Like a human body, which is partitioned into an indivisible way, into members of members, primary members, secondary, great and small. So they're talking about, now again, here they're talking specifically about eons and the eonic emanations, but ultimately this is going to give rise to earth and all creation, etc. But they're comparing it to a body. Like a body is one thing, but has a multiplicity of aspects to it. You have, you know, your eyes, your nose, your ears, your hands, your fingers, your feet, and all of these things are different aspects of you, but they are all you, and they all should be working together harmoniously. And this is why I often say when humanity reaches the next level of awareness, which is all awareness, right now they're in self-awareness, when they reach all awareness properly, then a world that is loving will naturally follow from that. If reality is truly understood for what it is. People can still misunderstand reality and come to a higher consciousness, but it would be it's a malformed version of consciousness. I'll talk about that some other time. But if one comes to a properly formed understanding of what existence is and attains all awareness, then a new world will naturally follow. Because right now, as humanity is fighting itself, it's like a body divided against itself. It's hand against hand. It's punching itself in the face. It's smashing its own hand with a hammer. And when you come to realize that, hey, this is all one thing, what are you immediately going to do? You're going to stop smashing your hand with a hammer. So the things that need to be done on Earth right now are really quite glaringly obvious once humanity starts reaching a higher state of awareness. When you start reaching a higher state of awareness, you realize, oh shit, great idea, guys. Hey, maybe we shouldn't torture each other because their sky god has a different name than our sky god. Maybe we shouldn't, so stupid. So the things that need to be fixed, there are a lot of problems in the world right now, and not everything. There are some things that don't have easy answers or easy solutions, but overall, the big problems in the world, the solutions are glaringly obvious when one comes to a higher state of awareness. This is why it's imperative and necessary to create a new beginning, that we begin to help humanity reach a new level of consciousness. And if you're not ready to do that, work on yourself, transform yourself, because we're all here to transform ourselves and transform others and transform the world and transform the universe, transform reality, transform all existence. And it starts with us, because everything is us. So when we transform ourselves, we help transform the world as well. So my friends, I hope you enjoyed this video on the Aeons. So next week, we're going to talk about the imperfect begetting by the Logos, where we talk about the imperfection that then does begin to arise, which is going to be very interesting. I have a whole playlist on this stuff. Go check it out. It should be popping up right over here at some point. And as always, if you enjoy my work and you want to help support this channel grow, consider supporting on Patreon. The link is right over here, patreon.com/MorgueOfficial, and you'll get access to all of our members-only videos. And there's a new members-only video every single week. And you can also support and get access to members-only videos by supporting on Tier 2 or higher on YouTube. The join button is right below this video. Helps out a lot. I appreciate it. And as always, remember, hey, this isn't church, so you're not obligated to. There are plenty of free ways to support. Only support if you're able to and you want to. But that being said, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support, because I appreciate it very, very much. It's because of you that this channel is possible. So shout out to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Enki, Nusalina, Paul Rogers III, Eric Fire, Masam, Christopher Smith, and everyone else. Thank you very much.